Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. EDINA Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, EDINA Eye offers comprehensive services for dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. I can't see myself, however, we're on Zoom.
You look good, Alan.
I have to tell you, it's been a long 6 weeks since March 6th, which was our last Access to Democracy, and then arrival of the coronavirus, and we have been out of commission since then. But amazingly, right now, thanks to the expertise of our crew, our professional Egan TV crew, we're going to try this on Zoom and see how it works. And of course, we have a very frequent and favorite guest for our first interview, for our first experiment, retired Justice Paul Anderson of the Minnesota Supreme Court, who has been on the program so many times that he's actually writing a book about it.
I am.
And welcome, Justice Anderson.
Alan, it's a pleasure to be here. And well, you mentioned I'm getting my interviews transcribed, and I might do it in a self-published book. But you have created quite a historical record with your show. I mean, I know you're not into pride too much, but you should be pretty proud of what you've done and the legacy that you're going to leave.
Well, you know, we certainly are. It started out as one interview more years ago than I care to remember. And since we're in number 21 now, and amazingly, it just kind of took off. Fortunately, with guests like you, and today we'll also be, after you, interviewing Professor Richard Painter and then Senator Jim Carlson, and it could be almost anybody from the governor on down. And it's the guests that really have made the show. So I must say to Josh, who's at the controls, we owe him a lot. And all I see on my screen right now is you. I'm up top, but I assume that everything is under control. So
I can see you well, Alan. I can see both myself and I can see you.
Well, that's kind of scary, but it is. And we're certainly social distancing because you are in your home and I am in mine. And
I have my mask. If Josh
one,
said I should wear it, I would have put it on.
I have one nearby. And how has this coronavirus interrupted and disturbed your life in the last 6 weeks?
Actually, like most people, it's interfered with it a lot. But with electronics or whatever, I'm able to do a lot of different things. I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of meetings. I do teaching. Next week, I'm going to do a moot court, going to do it by Zoom. I'm going to sit here at home and I'm going to judge a moot court. And then I do a lot of writing. And so I'm doing a lot of writing, spend a lot of time at my desk, and then I'm getting a lot of jobs done around the house. But
Yeah, I actually can say the same thing. I'm doing a lot of writing and actually doing some jobs around the house and doing things that I haven't done in years. And what do you miss the most, actually?
well, I want to tell you, I know you're a real big fan of dogs, Alan. And I want to tell you that I'm tending to modeling dog behavior. I tend to wander the house looking for food and get overly excited at the prospect for a drive in the car or a walk.
Well, I hope you don't have accidents on the floor, because that's what happens with Katie.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. She gets so excited that she can't contain herself. One of the things about dogs, though, on days like today and on nice weather, Sharon and I have been taking long walks with her in the afternoon. Now that's something that we haven't done in years. She's about 7 or 8 now. We don't know exactly, and that's been one of the things we've added. That's been a very, very nice addition to our life.
Oh. So Alan, now that's a segue into, you're asking me what I'm doing. You're talking about going to walks. Is that I think by a factor of 8 or 10, Minnesotans are walking more. But the question is, what kind of a greeting do I do when I'm walking without a dog and encounter someone like yourself with a dog, or I encounter a jogger? Here's what I've got, is a book called How to Tell a Tornado. And in that book, Howard Moore talks about the wave. You see, I'm a country boy, and he's talking about how you wave in the country. I'm thinking of modifying that and doing a little piece on how you wave in the city now with people walking during the coronavirus.
Well, that's one thing. When you have a dog, one of the things that you have to do is, because she's very friendly, is say to people, no, she won't bite you. She's okay. She just wants to be petted. And of course, now we know that dogs can get coronavirus also. So dogs have to socially distance as well. That's going to be very difficult for Katie.
You just made your way into my article. I'm going to recount that.
Okay. Now, you had an article in the Star Tribune on the 23rd of February, and it was about Mitch McConnell. Hope for the best, expect the worst. In the last 2 days, McConnell has said something very famous going back to Gerald Ford. He said it to the states. I don't care if you go into bankruptcy. And in fact, he said, drop dead if you can't afford it. I wonder if you have a comment on McConnell, his conduct, in particular that the states let them go into bankruptcy, in effect, drop dead.
Well, one of the things that I think and I hope will come out of this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 thing, is that we will take a long, hard look at the people we have chosen to put in leadership. And as Lincoln said in his first inaugural, we will be wanting to look for our better angels. And I'm going to be very candid here. Mitch McConnell is not one of our better angels. He is mean. He's nasty, he's vicious in what he does. For him to say that he wants the blue states to go bankrupt when Kentucky and other states get much of their federal revenue because of the people of those states contributing to the budget, he's just plain wrong and off base. I cannot understand the narrow meanness that I see coming out of Mitch McConnell. I don't know what there is in his past that causes him to do that.
Well, it's interesting because there was a very interesting article this week in the New Yorker by Jane Mayer, who is a terrific writer. And it really is a profile of McConnell. And among the other things that it mentions is that his 3 daughters by his first wife None of them are Republicans. Two of them are actively involved in liberal politics, if not democratic politics, and all three of them don't agree with him philosophically. So you have to wonder what happened along the line where these three girls, obviously close to their mother, have this philosophy, and he's turned into a right-wing, perhaps I should say nutcase, because he's done some terrible things. And if you don't believe me, ask Merrick Garland.
You know, I said he started out in politics much more moderate than he is right now, and he's changed. It's a expedient move on his part in order to have power. One can never underestimate the aphrodisiac effect of power on some people. And he's he's got a good competitor against him down in Kentucky, but that's going to be a really mean, nasty race. I know the people who are do his ads. The son of a good friend of mine is one of the people that puts the ads together. Same company that did the Willie Horton ads in 1988.
Well, that doesn't bode well for honesty and truth. But I know that there's a big Ditch Mitch campaign that's gone far beyond Kentucky in terms of fundraising, and his opponent has raised a lot of money as well. So it should be interesting. His favorable ratings in Kentucky are actually much lower than the president's also.
But this leads me to another point, because I've had discussions about this with the young man who came in and ran his campaign. And it's the concept of being amoral. And they are amoral. It doesn't matter right or wrong or different. It's just they do what they think they want to or need to do to get elected. And I would like to see us in our society. Recently they did a article about why Minnesota is different from other states up here. And they said it's the morals and ethics that come from the historic population of Germans, Norwegians, and others who settled here. We need to get past this idea where being amoral is acceptable as long as it serves your end. We got to go back to some of the key things about ethics and morality and what serves the best interests of the country.
That's got to start at the top also, because it filters down throughout what used to be the Republican Party, of which you used to be a member. And I think you're an independent today, but you certainly don't have any.
Alan, I am no longer an independent. I'm too old to play around on the edges anymore. I was talking to somebody the other day. Is talking about me, how strong I was for public policy, taking care of the people and that. And he said, "Didn't you used to be a Republican?" Well, I said I was an Eisenhower Lincoln Republican, but that's changed. I anticipated this question. You know, in 1956, the Republican platform contained these things: provide federal assistance to low-income communities, protect Social Security, provide asylum for refugees, extend minimum wage, improve unemployment benefits, strengthen labor unions so the workers can enjoy equality, and assure equal pay for work of equal quality and merit regardless of gender. I mean, that's my root. That's what I used to be.
Joe Biden can run on that policy.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the Democrats run a little too far to the right of even that, but that's what my roots are. And I mean, and I find that more now in the Democratic platform than I do the Republicans. Republicans have just they've changed so much that I can no longer identify with where they want to go.
And you're not alone there. There are a lot of people that I have spoken to. As a matter of fact, Richard Painter, who is going to be interviewed later today, also was the top ethics lawyer in the Bush campaign and the Bush presidency. And he's certainly as far to, actually, he hasn't changed his philosophy. It's the Republican Party that's changed his philosophy.
It's very interesting here, Alan, because I am a moderate Republican. I have so many friends there. Like, for example, Dave Durnberg. Dave, I don't think will ever be able to say what I just said, that I'm no longer a Republican. And I have any number of friends like that. They just don't want to give up and can't give up and separate themselves from those historical roots, but are so offended by what the party is doing. I guess my parents raised me to be pretty independent-minded and to be pragmatic, and I think that's why I'm where I am now.
Well, I think that's a good thing. And I wanted to ask you, there are two cases that are coming up in the DC circuit on Tuesday. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but they're two very important cases. The DC circuit is the circuit that Merrick Garland happens to be the presiding justice in. And also, one of them, or maybe both of them, went down 2-1, and they're going before the whole bench. The first one is whether Congress, whether the committees of Congress have subpoena power. And it comes out of the McGahn case, who refused to appear before a congressional committee when he was subpoenaed, saying that he is above it. Well, they won in the lower court, and then they went to the DC circuit, and they lost 2-1. The government won there. And so it's going before the whole bench of the congressional, of the DC circuit on Tuesday. One of two cases I want to ask you about. What do you feel about that?
Well, if they don't, if that full panel does not reverse that 2-1, they are overturning long-standing precedent in the United States that goes back actually to the 1920s and the time of Warren G. Harding, who quite frankly now is probably feeling confident he is no longer going to be illicit about one of those who's been our worst president. But there was an investigation. Senator out of Montana had led that investigation into the Teapot Dome. And they wanted government records and information. They tried to keep it from the Congress. And they went to the courts. And the courts said, Congress, in order to do your job, you need to be able to have access to this information. So I'm hopeful that they will stick by what their precedent is and say Congress can subpoena both records and individuals.
Well, Justice Kavanaugh is one who said precedent is very important. Actually, Gorsuch said the same thing. So it'll be very interesting if it ever gets that far. But of course, I wanted to see what the DC circuit.
Before you leave those two, and particularly Kavanaugh, what I'm concerned about them is they have, I would almost say, an absolutist position with respect to the power of the executive. They have a strong view. I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't have some basis to it, but I don't think it's in our Constitution that defers to executive power. I've been reminded of what Benjamin Franklin said after the Constitutional Convention was over, and a woman supposedly asked him, well, what have you given us, Mr. Franklin? And his response was, a republic, ma'am, a republic, if you can keep it. See, we need to keep vigilant all the time to preserve the nature of our republic where the people are sovereign.
You know what else Franklin said? When he was flying his kite and it got hit by lightning, he said, damn, that's smart.
I'm not sure the historical basis for that. I'd like to see your sites, sir.
The other case that's coming up in the DC circuit, right in line with what you were saying there, is whether the executive has the power to nullify spending power of Congress, as they have done, as the Trump administration has done several times this year, or these 3 years, I should say. Does the executive have the power to nullify what Congress has decreed? Because as I read it, Congress is the one that has the spending power. And I don't see where, except in this administration, they get the power to do that.
Very interesting concept, both on the national and the state level. See, Congress, they raise taxes, they do appropriations, and the president has to sign on to those appropriations, but it comes out of the Congress. That's part of the whole separation of powers thing. And so what you have with the president, he'll sign an appropriations bill and the language in it, and then he starts interpreting it in a odd, different way. Even some of the conservative Republicans are getting concerned about the actions of the president, how he acts with impunity with respect to their directives. Now, we had a similar case here, in Minnesota, where it was when Governor Pawlenty was governor, and it was the unallotment case. And that's the case that Eric Magnuson, a good friend, the Chief Justice Magnuson, a good friend of Pawlenty's, joined the other three of us on the court and said, no, Mr. Governor, you don't have that power to rule by fiat, by unallotting as you see fit. No, we are a separation of powers constitutional republic, and he shouldn't be able to do it. But again, I think that this Supreme Court that we have, given the views of Kavanaugh and others, may well say, well, he can do it.
Well, it's interesting because Kavanaugh wrote actually what was the deciding decision this week in terms of jury trials in criminal cases, that they have to be unanimous verdicts, whether it's state or federal. And it was Kavanaugh's decision that was the deciding decision in that one. So I wonder if he is being pressured or has really internal pressure to be the man that he said he was, and not the record that's portrayed.
We're dealing a little bit with apples and oranges here, in the sense of executive power and separation of powers and the rights of an individual in a trial. I mean, from my point of view, that was a pretty simple, straightforward case. Is that, we've always required that a jury be unanimous. Our best is must be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And we know that in this system, some guilty people get away with crimes because of that. But that's the way the system works. And we have, for the longest time, had this tradition based on Constitution that it has to be unanimous. Now, some states were chipping away at that and whatever. So I was pleased to see the Supreme Court says, no, that's what the Constitution says, and you have to do it. Unanimous verdict.
Now, I think that there's some things that you wanted to talk about today, and this is really interesting for me in terms of how we're doing this. And, if you had asked me 2 years ago, do I Zoom? I said, no. I would say no, I walk very slowly. But here we are with a different medium in a time of crisis for the nation. And yet we're still able to pretty much have the kind of dialogue that we normally have in the studio. I tell you, I would rather be in the studio and surrounded by our volunteers and know that people like Josh and Dan and Mike and Haley are there in case of emergency. I would rather have that. And maybe we will go back to that in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, here we are. And how do you feel we're doing here, acclimating to this? And then I think you want to talk about the power of government. So let's talk about that.
Well, first I'm going to respond to the format. I find it very comfortable. I mean, I don't like looking at a close-up of myself on the screen like that, but other than that, I mean, you know, is you and I are just talking like we normally do. But the issue I wanted to talk about just a little bit is, and I think we are at a seminal moment in our country's history. I hope we are. And it centers around the question of the power of government. And it goes back to what I've told you this before, is our founders really did believe that government has a definite role. They would not agree with a Grover Norquist who says they want to shrink government to size that's so small you can drown it in a bathtub. No, our government's mandate is to give us the right to pursue happiness. And that means, going back to Aristotle, is to provide every person with the maximum opportunity to achieve happiness. That means security, you know, police and fire. It means infrastructure. It means education. And see, I was at a table where in a very fancy dinner out in the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., when I went through this, and I was talking about that. And actually, it was Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife and some other people were at the same table. And when I got to healthcare and I got to the infrastructure, I said, you know, for people to be happy, they have to be healthy. And there are some things that only government can do to guarantee that we're healthy. And I mean, we need to have built in an infrastructure that is capable of taking care of our health. Well, 11 months before that, Thomas had just ruled against Obamacare. And I got a lot of pushback from the table when I talked about that. But no, government has in the past let us down. The CDC has dropped the ball, but then their budget was drastically been cut over the last couple of years.
As with so many other agencies, and so many agencies that are working without personnel, and so many agencies where top personnel have been fired for no reason, or just for reason of telling the truth. It's pretty scary. But you know, healthcare for all, whether you endorse Bernie's position or whether you go with Biden or Amy Klobuchar, is really one of the things that really came to the forefront because of this coronavirus.
Yes, our people, our fellow citizens, and we see as a result of this, we're in this all together. It doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, rich or poor, it affects us, is that we do need an infrastructure, a system that is capable of handling it. And I'm going to go a step further. We need to have elected leaders who are committed to that idea. One of the things I like with respect to our Governor Tim Walz, I think he's doing a very good job, but I was thinking about this morning. I get the feeling that the governor cares about me. He cares about my welfare, my health as a citizen of the state of Minnesota. That gives me a considerable amount of serenity. You know, he'll make some mistakes in his decision back and forth, but he really wants to do the best thing. I'm not sure that we're getting that same thing from our leadership on a national level. Oh, by the way, Alan, I need to ask you a question. The president says that we should take disinfectant or help cure us. Do I dilute the Lysol or I take it straight?
No, you inject it into your veins.
No, I don't like needles. I don't think I'd do that.
Well, the other alternative is exposing yourself to ultraviolet light. If you expose yourself to very strong ultraviolet light, the president says that it's going to cure your ills.
So I know enough that ultraviolet C is dangerous to your health, so I'm not going to go there.
I actually think that we have used up our time, and I'm not sure because it's not as exact, but I just got a signal from Josh, fortunately he's there, to wind up. So I just want to thank you. I hope that the next time we speak to Justice Anderson, it'll be in our studios in the Thomson Reuters building And as you know, you are always welcome, and I really wish you good luck on this book of our interviews and that it comes along. Josh, I can't thank you enough, and Dan and everybody else who worked to make this possible. And again, Justice Paul Anderson, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Well, thank you, Alan. The format works, and take care of yourself and take care of Sharon.
Will do. And regards to Jan, thank you.